We begged for mercy. Only humans answered the call. The Grand Galactic Council chamber was supposed to inspire awe. Today, it only amplified our terror. I, Ambassador Talzek of the Miri Collective, stood trembling before the assembled representatives of the 17 most advanced civilizations in the known universe. My skin glistened with nervous secretions that dripped onto the polished floor. Not very dignified, but nobody seemed to notice. They were all too busy panicking in their own species' specific ways. The Voidborn have taken Proxima Centauri, announced High Counselor Baz Tech, her crystalline exoskeleton clicking anxiously as she manipulated the holographic display. That makes 8 systems in the past lunar cycle. 8 systems, billions of lives, countless achievements, all gone. Not conquered, consumed. The Trill delegation's membranous wings fluttered in distress. The hive mind of Andromeda 7 has gone silent. 3 trillion connected consciousness points, extinguished in less than a day. What about the Orion Defense Pact? Asked Gorvan, the silicon-based entity from Rigel. Their quantum weaponry. Useless, interrupted Admiral Faison, slamming his tentacle against the table. The Voidborn adapted within minutes. The entire Orion fleet is now drifting debris. A suffocating silence fell over the chamber. We'd tried everything. Our greatest technologies, our most brilliant strategic minds, our unbreakable alliances, all had failed against the Voidborn. Those shadow-dwelling monstrosities with their ability to phase through solid matter, consume energy directly, and worst of all, learn from every encounter. There is one option we haven't considered, said Counselor Landar, her voice barely above a whisper. Every head, appendage, and sensory organ turned toward her. The deathworlders. Gasps echoed throughout the chamber. Even suggesting contact with those savages was considered madness. Absolutely not, protested Gorvan. Those violent primates would sooner destroy us than help us. I surprised myself by speaking up. They call themselves humans, and they've been reaching out to us for decades. Perhaps it's time we answered. Those creatures evolved on a planet that should have killed them 1,000 times over, Landar continued. Their biology is absurd. Endurance predators who can sweat, creatures who can survive losing limbs, beings who voluntarily consume poisons for pleasure. Admiral Faison's eye stalks quivered. And their history, endless war, unthinkable cruelty. Yes, I said, feeling strangely calm now. Exactly the kind of allies we need against an enemy that shows no mercy. The vote was unanimous in the end, not because we wanted humans involved, but because we had run out of alternatives. As I prepared the diplomatic transmission to Earth, I couldn't help wondering, would these deathworlders be our salvation or simply a different kind of doom? What we couldn't possibly know then was how spectacularly, terrifyingly right we were to call upon them. Our diplomatic vessel approached Earth with caution. Even from orbit, you could tell this was a death world: raging oceans, tectonic instability, extreme temperature variations, and atmospheric composition that would kill half the Council species in minutes. Are you certain the translator implants are functioning correctly? Asked Counselor Baz Tech, fidgeting with her protective suit. I heard these humans have over 6,000 languages. It's actually closer to 7,000, I replied, which didn't help her anxiety. We landed at their designated United Nations facility, a primitive structure by our standards, but impressive for a species that had only mastered electricity a few centuries ago. A delegation of humans waited, surrounding a central female figure. My scanner identified her as Secretary General Maya Patel. "Welcome to Earth," she said, showing far too many teeth. I'd been briefed that this was a smile, not an aggression display, but my instinct screamed danger. We presented our situation without embellishment: the Voidborn threat, our devastating losses, our desperation. I expected shock, fear, perhaps even refusal. What I didn't expect was laughter. A broad-shouldered male, General Jackson, actually slapped his thigh. So you've got space vampires, and now you want our help. That's rich coming from folks who've been ghosting us for decades. The Voidborn have annihilated 8 civilizations far more advanced than yours, Baztec clicked angrily. This is no laughing matter. The Secretary General's expression shifted, that remarkable human ability to signal emotions through minute facial adjustments. Forgive us, Ambassador Talzek. It's not that we don't take this seriously. It's just that, well, this scenario has appeared in our fiction for centuries. We've been mentally preparing for this moment longer than you realize. They took us to what they called the Pentagon, where we observed their strange, liquid-filled bodies in motion sweating, drinking coffee, consuming food, while discussing genocide-level threats. Bizarrely casual. These specks on the Voidborn, said a female scientist named Dr. Kaisha Okonkwo, scrolling through our data. They're energy-based predators, essentially. And they learn from every encounter? Precisely, I replied, which is why we failed. Our technology is too predictable. General Jackson exchanged glances with the others. Well, good news for you, Ambassador. If there's one thing humans excel at, it's being unpredictable. The military officers began discussing strategy, immediately casual suggestions of suicide missions, planetary-scale traps, and weapons that would kill the wielder alongside the enemy. Their willingness to consider self-sacrifice was utterly alien to us. We'll need your technology, Secretary General Patel said, and you'll need our creativity. I watched a human casually bite into a capsaicin fruit, literally pain-inducing for pleasure, and wondered what kind of madness we were unleashing on the galaxy. We accept your terms, I said, my skin flushing with both hope and dread. And just like that, humanity joined the galactic community, not with the careful diplomatic dance we'd imagined for centuries, but as mercenaries in an extinction-level war. Have you ever watched a predator become prey? That's what happened when humans got their hands on our Voidborn data. Within days, the United Earth Defense Force had commandeered an abandoned lunar base we'd built centuries ago for observation. They called it Castle Dracula, apparently referencing some ancient fictional monster. Humans and their jokes in the face of extinction, another trait I couldn't comprehend. The Voidborn aren't random, announced Captain Dara Novak during our first joint strategic meeting. She was strikingly tall for a human, with dark hair tied back severely and scars across her knuckles that spoke of actual physical combat. Barbaric, yet somehow impressive. She manipulated the holographic display with practiced ease, despite never having used our technology before. Look at the attack pattern on Proxima Centauri, then Rigel, then New Andromeda. Admiral Faison's eye stalks bent toward the display. They appear chaotic, unpredictable. No, they're hunting, Captain Novak stated flatly. Notice how they always target power generation first, then communication hubs. They're apex predators with a consistent kill strategy, and predators can be trapped. Her plan was insanity, pure, beautiful human insanity. You want to willingly lure these monsters to an inhabited system? Baztek's crystalline structure nearly shattered with outrage, with living beings as bait. With volunteers as bait, corrected General Jackson. Starting with me. That silenced the room. The concept of military leadership placing themselves in danger violated every protocol in the Galactic Council. Here's what we know, Captain Novak continued, ignoring the tension. The Voidborn feed on energy. They phase through solid matter but become partially material to feed. That's our window. She pulled up schematics for what they called Project Thunderdome. It involved retrofitting an entire small moon with experimental technology that would, as she casually put it, turn the entire planetoid into one big bug zapper. You'll all get to play your parts, she assured us. The Muri's phase-shifting technology, Rigelian quantum weaponry, Andromeda's hive mind tactical analysis. But it'll only work if we can force the Voidborn to materialize at precisely the right moment. "And how do you propose to do that?" I asked. Her smile sent a chill down my spine ridges. "By offering them something so delicious they can't resist taking a big, juicy bite." Over the next 14 Earth days, I witnessed humanity's military machine in action. They worked around the clock in rotating shifts, modified our technology in ways that violated several fundamental engineering principles yet somehow functioned, and consumed alarming amounts of caffeine and sugar. Captain Novak established a testing facility in what they called the Mojave Desert. Here they subjected prototype weapons to trials that often resulted in spectacular failures. Rather than despairing, the humans cheered each explosion, made notes, and tried again with modifications. "We're getting there," Dr. Okonkwo explained as we watched a test that liquidized a dummy target designed to mimic Voidborn energy patterns. "The trick is hitting them when they're between phases." General Jackson demonstrated a handheld weapon they'd developed, a modified version of our phase disruption technology that would, in his words, make the ghostly bastards solid enough to punch. The human fixation with physical combat was bizarre. When I pointed out that direct contact with a Voidborn was nearly always fatal, he just shrugged. "Sometimes you gotta risk it all to win." Risk it all. That philosophy pervaded everything they did. While our civilizations had evolved toward preservation and caution, humans embraced danger like an old friend. And watching them prepare for what they casually termed the biggest bug hunt in human history, I began to understand why they had survived their death world. They were, in their own terrifying way, perfectly adapted to face extinction because they'd been doing it their entire evolutionary history. The integration of human soldiers with our technology produced results that ranged from miraculous to catastrophic, often within the same solar day. No, absolutely not. That will cause a quantum cascade failure, shrieked engineer Vril Zax as a human technician named Martinez casually rerouted power through our ship's dimensional stabilizer. "Nah, it'll be fine," Martinez replied, mouth full of something called a burrito, while making modifications that violated at least 17 galactic safety protocols. "I've bypassed worse." To everyone's shock, especially Vril Zax's, it worked. The power output increased by 32%, with only a minor radiation leak that the humans deemed totally within acceptable parameters. This scene repeated itself across our combined fleet. Humans took our carefully designed, meticulously engineered systems and modified them with what they called duct tape and WD-40, primitive substances that somehow became essential components in advanced weapons systems. Commander Rajesh Patel was placed in charge of training our mixed forces. A barrel-chested man with a booming laugh, he had a peculiar approach to military discipline. He encouraged questioning of orders. "But compliance ensures tactical unity," protested Admiral Faizan during one particularly heated training session. "Compliance gets you dead when circumstances change," Commander Patel shot back. "I need soldiers who can think, not follow." His training methods bordered on the absurd. He would suddenly change mission parameters mid-exercise, cut communications, or introduce impossible scenarios without warning. When our forces complained this was unfair, his response became legendary throughout the fleet. "You think the Voidborn give a damn about fair? Life isn't fair. War isn't fair. The universe isn't fair. So get unfair right back." Cultural misunderstandings abounded. The humans' obsession with using chemical reactions in their bodies for pleasure led to an incident I'm still trying to forget involving Baz-Tech, a substance called tequila, and an unauthorized reconfiguration of the gravity generators. Another time, the humans organized what they called a movie night to boost morale. They showed historical records of previous alien invasions of Earth, records that turned out to be fictional entertainment. The council representatives were horrified by these documentaries called Independence Day and Edge of Tomorrow, wondering if humans were preparing to turn against us next. "Relax," Captain Novak told us, laughing at our concern. "If we wanted to conquer you, we wouldn't announce our battle plans through Hollywood." Not entirely reassuring. Yet amid these clashes, something unexpected happened. We began to appreciate humans. The turning point came during a Voidborn simulation. Our tactical approach relied on complex algorithms and contingencies for every possible scenario, an approach that had failed against the adaptive Voidborn. Commander Patel took one look at our battle plan and tossed the datapad aside. "Too complicated," he declared. "The enemy adapts to patterns, so we won't give them any." His alternative strategy involved deliberate randomness, tactics selected via dice rolls at certain decision points. A mockery of military science, surely. But it worked. In simulation after simulation, this controlled chaos outperformed our carefully crafted strategies. The hybrid teams began incorporating human unpredictability with alien precision. During these weeks, barriers began to fall. Humans learned to recognize our emotional cues, and we began to understand their bizarre facial expressions. They taught us poker to improve our grasp of human deception, while we shared knowledge of cosmic phenomena they had only theorized about. I found myself assigned to Captain Novak's flagship, the U.S. Pandora. When I asked about the name, she smiled. She carried hope. Even after releasing all the world's evils, Novak explained, seemed fitting. The night before our first major engagement, I found humans and aliens gathered together in the mess hall, sharing stories, fears, and that human ritual of toasting with various beverages. Commander Patel raised his glass to our unlikely alliance, to new friends and old nightmares. As we prepared to face the Voidborn, I realized that these chaotic, reckless deathworlders had given us something we'd lost long ago in our safe, advanced civilizations. They'd given us hope. The Voidborn arrived at Tau Ceti exactly as predicted. Captain Novak's analysis of their hunting patterns had been flawless. What happened next would forever change warfare in the galaxy. All ships maintained position. Admiral Faison commanded as the Voidborn materialized at the system's edge, shadowy, shifting forms that seemed to exist between dimensions, their very presence causing sensor disruptions across our fleet. Hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. I stood on the bridge of the U.S. Pandora, watching the humans' reactions. There was fear. Yes, they weren't suicidal, but something else too. Excitement. "Bait fleet, begin power surge," ordered Captain Novak. "Make yourselves look delicious." The decoy vessels, automated ships loaded with energy cores activated, pulsing with power, drawing the Voidborn like moths to flame. We'd tried similar tactics before, but the Voidborn had always detected the trap. This time we had humans. "Now for the chaos," grinned Commander Patel, and pressed what the humans called the big red button. Every third ship in our formation suddenly changed position, not according to any discernible pattern, but based on random number generators operated by human officers who had, in Commander Patel's words, good gut feelings. The Voidborn, detecting the shift, altered their approach. Right into our trap. "Phase 1 complete," announced Captain Novak. "Initiate Phase 2. Phase 2 defied explanation. Half our vessels suddenly shut down completely, appearing dead in space. Others began firing weapons, seemingly at random, missing the Voidborn entirely. Some launched escape pods toward the nearest planet. "What are they doing?" Baztec clicked frantically beside me. "They're acting like panicked juveniles." I had no answer. This hadn't been in any briefing I'd attended. The Voidborn, sensing weakness and confusion, did exactly what predators do. They converged on the apparently easiest prey. 3 massive Voidborn entities approached the powered-down vessels, phasing partially into normal space to begin feeding. "Phase 3. Barked Captain Novak. Every dead ship suddenly erupted with a new form of energy, something the humans called Tesla coils combined with Neuriphase locking technology. The Voidborn, caught mid-feed, found themselves trapped in material form. And that's when human insanity truly revealed itself. Marines, you are cleared hot. General Jackson's voice came over the comms. Happy hunting. From the belly of our largest vessels emerged small assault craft, nothing more than armored shells with engines, really piloted by humans in modified battle suits. They rammed directly into the now solid Voidborn. They're deliberately colliding with the enemy. I gasped. Not colliding, corrected Lieutenant Kim beside me, her eyes gleaming with fierce pride. Boarding. The humans were physically entering the Voidborn to attack them from inside. A tactic so primitive, so absurdly dangerous, that no species in the galaxy would have conceived it, let alone attempted it. The battle devolved into what humans call a beautiful mess. Assault teams detonated phase disruption charges from within the Voidborn. Larger ships executed maneuvers that violated basic physics, relying on human pilots who operated on instinct rather than calculations. At one point, a human vessel deliberately overloaded its reactor, timing the explosion to catch 3 Voidborn in the blast radius. 62% of Voidborn forces eliminated, reported our tactical AI, tones of disbelief in its synthesized voice. Remaining enemies retreating. The Voidborn were retreating. For the first time in the war, we had won a major engagement. The aftermath was chaos of another kind. Rescue operations for the boarding teams, emergency repairs, and the sobering count of losses. 27% of our forces were gone, a devastating toll by our standards. Yet the humans celebrated. We kicked their asses, whooped a blood-covered Marine as medical drones tended to what appeared to be a severed arm. His severed arm. Did you see Jenkins ram that shadow freak? Legendary. The Galactic Council representatives watched in stunned silence as humans who had lost limbs, suffered radiation burns, or witnessed comrades die celebrated their victory with something called moonshine that Engineering Officer Tran had apparently been distilling in a maintenance closet. I don't understand, Counselor Landar whispered to me. They're acting as if they didn't nearly die. I think, I replied slowly, that's exactly why they're celebrating. They faced death and won. Later, as the humans conducted what they called a raging victory party that spread across 3 decks, Captain Novak found me observing from a quiet corner. Your people fought well today, Ambassador, she said, offering me a drink. We've been fighting for years, I replied. Today was the first time we fought like humans. She laughed. Best compliment I've had all day. Then, more seriously, this is just the beginning. The Voidborn will adapt. And will adapt faster, I said, surprising myself with my confidence. As I watched humans and aliens swapping battle stories, comparing wounds and forming bonds that transcended biology, I realized something profound, that we hadn't just gained powerful allies, we'd gained teachers in the art of survival. 6 months, 17 battles, and countless skirmishes later, we had pushed the Voidborn back to their origin point, a massive quantum singularity at the edge of the boot's void. A place where reality itself was thin. Their homeworld, if you can call it that, explained Dr. Okonkwo, pointing to the swirling darkness on our view screens. Not a planet. More like a dimensional tier they used to enter our universe. The combined fleet hung at a safe distance, the largest armada ever assembled in galactic history. 132 species represented, all following the battle plan created by humanity's joint chiefs. Captain Novak, now Admiral Novak after her string of victories, stood on the bridge of the flagship. The scars on her face from previous engagements had barely healed. This is it, people, she addressed the fleet. Strike Package Alpha will deliver the dimensional sealer directly to the singularity. Strike Package Bravo will engage the Voidborn Defense Force to create a diversion. The rest of us will hold the perimeter and ensure nothing escapes. What she didn't say, what everyone knew, was that Strike Package Alpha was a suicide mission. The dimensional sealer needed to be delivered directly into the heart of the singularity, and the physics involved meant no remote detonation was possible. Someone had to physically take it there. "Who volunteered for Strike Alpha?" I asked Commander Patel quietly. "Who didn't?" he replied. "We had to hold a lottery." I still couldn't comprehend it. In our civilizations, self-preservation was the highest instinct. For humans, it seemed negotiable. The battle began like all the others with chaos. The Voidborn emerged in unprecedented numbers, sensing the threat to their home. Our sensors couldn't even count them. The readouts simply showed error, overflow. Strike Bravo engaged immediately, human pilots executing maneuvers that defied both physics and common sense. They'd learned that the Voidborn had difficulty predicting movements that weren't optimized, that human illogic was actually a tactical advantage. "Alpha Team, you are clear for approach." Admiral Novak's voice was steady despite the carnage unfolding around us. The 12 ships of Strike Alpha, small, nimble craft piloted by Earth's best, accelerated toward the singularity. The Voidborn, realizing the true threat, converged on them. "Bravo Team, give them some cover," ordered Commander Patel. What followed was perhaps the most selfless act I've witnessed in my diplomatic career. 53 ships from Bravo deliberately placed themselves between Alpha and the oncoming Voidborn. They knew they couldn't survive. They did it anyway. "Keep going, Alpha," yelled Lieutenant Kim over the comms as her ship disintegrated around her. "We've got this. You've got this." The battle devolved into pure survival. Our perimeter forces struggled to maintain position as waves of Voidborn crashed against our lines. For every one we destroyed, 3 more emerged from the singularity. Then disaster struck. A massive energy surge from the singularity disabled 9 of Alpha's 12 ships. Alpha leader to command came a strained-voiced General Jackson himself. "We're down to 3 ships. Dimensional sealer payload at 30%. Not enough to collapse the breach." Silence on the command channel. Everyone knew what that meant. Failure. The end. Then Admiral Novak spoke. "New plan. Alpha survivors, rendezvous at coordinates being transmitted. Pandora is moving to your position." It took me precisely 3.2 seconds to understand what she intended. "You can't," I protested. "The Pandora's reactor, when detonated inside the singularity, will generate enough energy to seal it," she finished calmly. "The math works out. There's no way to remote pilot through those gravitational forces," Commander Patel argued. "Someone would have to." "I'm aware, Commander," she interrupted. "Bridge crew to evacuation stations." "That's an order." The evacuation alarms blared, but Admiral Novak remained at her station, manually overriding the safeties on the Pandora's experimental quantum reactor. "Admiral, please," I tried one last time. "There must be another way." Her smile was almost gentle. "There isn't, Ambassador. And that's okay. This is what we do." As we were forcibly escorted to escape pods, I watched her set the final coordinates. The Pandora, our flagship, broke from formation and accelerated toward the singularity, gathering the surviving Alpha ships in its wake. From the safety of a rescue vessel, we witnessed the Pandora punch through the Voidborn line, taking devastating damage but never slowing. The 3 remaining Alpha ships formed a protective triangle around it, absorbing attacks meant for the flagship. "Dimensional sealer armed," Admiral Novak's voice came through, distorted by interference. "Reactor overload sequence initiated." "It's been an honor, everyone." The Pandora vanished into the singularity. For 10 excruciating seconds, nothing happened. Then, a blinding flash of light. The singularity contracted, pulsed, and began to collapse in on itself. Voidborn everywhere screamed in frequencies that shattered sensors and ruptured hulls. The tear in reality closed like a healing wound. The remaining Voidborn, cut off from their source, went berserk but disorganized. Without their hive connection, they were just animals, dangerous but beatable. 3 hours later, it was over. The last Voidborn destroyed or contained. The cost was devastating. 40% of our combined fleet lost. Earth's finest military minds gone. The Pandora and her crew erased from existence. Yet as I looked around at the survivors, humans and aliens alike, bloodied but unbowed, I understood something fundamental about these deathworlders we had so feared. Humans didn't value life less than we did. They valued it more, so much that they would sacrifice their own to preserve others. One standard galactic year after the Battle of the Singularity, I found myself once again standing before the Grand Galactic Council. The chamber had been rebuilt, along with much of our civilization. Slow, painstaking work, but proceeding faster than anyone had dared hope. Ambassador Talzek, High Counselor Landar addressed me. Your report on the integration of Earth into the galactic community? I gestured to the human standing beside me, Marcus Wells, Earth's first official galactic representative. The chamber, once horrified at the mere suggestion of human involvement, now fell silent with respect. Integration is proceeding well, I reported. Though I would suggest we're integrating into their methods as much as they are adapting to ours. Laughter rippled through the chamber. A sound rarely heard in this place before humans entered our lives. The truth was, humanity had reshaped galactic society more in 1 year than the Council had in millennia. Their reckless innovation, their willingness to question established protocols, their bizarre ability to find humor in tragedy, all had infected our stagnant cultures like a benevolent virus. The Earth Defense Academy now has students from 73 worlds, Marcus added. Turns out a lot of species want to learn how to fight like humans. After the ceremony, Marcus and I walked the memorial gardens, where monuments to the fallen stood. At the center, a life-size statue of Admiral Novak gazed into the distance, forever watching for threats to her unlikely alliance. You know what's funny? Marcus said, examining a Regelian meditation crystal gifted to honor their dead. For centuries, we imagined meeting aliens. We always thought you'd either try to conquer us or uplift us. And instead, we begged for your help, I finished. Life's weird that way. Indeed it was. The species we had dismissed as primitive deathworlders had become our most valued allies. Their homeworld, once quarantined, was now a hub of interstellar commerce and cultural exchange. Human music, art, and even their bewildering memes spread across the galaxy, bringing with them the uniquely human perspective that darkness could be faced with laughter, that impossible odds were just interesting challenges, that death itself was not to be feared but faced when necessary. Do you regret contacting us? Marcus asked suddenly. I considered the question carefully. Before humans, we had peace, order, and stability. We lived long lives of comfort and predictability. And now we have purpose. We have struggle. We have growth. I gestured toward the stars above us. We have a future that isn't predetermined. It's terrifying and wonderful. As the twin moons rose over the new galactic capital, I reflected on what truly made humans different. Not their biology or their history of violence, but something far simpler and more profound. When the universe showed them horror, they showed it defiance. When we begged for mercy, they answered with courage. Perhaps that was the gift humanity offered the galaxy, not just salvation from the Voidborn, but salvation from our own comfortable stagnation. And if that meant occasionally dealing with human chaos, well, that seemed a small price to pay.